is just fantastic. Captain's log. Subjects 220203.7. One day out, and I have to admit, they're persistent. Like the modders were when they spanked Lady Big Titty Vampire Lady. But with my shields easily holding, I've decided to send them some crumpets and arsenic-loaded tea. Welcome everyone to the exhibition of stupid people. Today we're going to start with politicians. Yes, politics, but kind of not at the same time. As anyone would know, if you want to really make it in the world, what you want to do is manage to troll the current reigning government in your respective country to such a level that they scramble because they think what you've put out to bait them is in fact factual. For this, we introduce comedian Joe Lycett, who in the wake of a Sue Gray report, which was an investigation and report that was supposed to come out this week, into whether or not the government broke the very rules they set with regards to COOF guidelines and lockdowns, in the form of parties, many of which the government can't refute because the picture evidence is damning. But since the Metropolitan Police conveniently get involved at the 11th hour, the report has been watered down and heavily redacted, because criminal investigation and all that. So what did Joe Lycett do, you ask? Well, he decided to tweet out a Cabinet Office memo, or an aspect of Sue Gray's report, under the guise of it being a memo, and it reads as follows. A summary of my main findings. 1. A culture of COVID-19 regulation rule breaking at number 10 Downing Street. 2. Games were played which were known as Slow Dance and Pass the Arsehole. 3. A number of WhatsApp groups were established to organize gatherings, with titles including Definitely a Meeting and Down It Street. At one party, redacted name, a senior minister insisted all cabinet ministers get onto a table and perform pure and simple by hearsay. They were one of those groups that did a reality show and got famous off it, like X Factor. Before one of the gatherings, redacted name, who worked closely with the Prime Minister, insisted that everyone be tested and was subsequently referred to as Twatteral Flow by advisors. A video of the PM's wife at one party confirms her attendance, in which she is heard saying, "It could be as few as 4 and as many as 60 kids. LOL. 7. One advisor insisted this report make clear it is categorically not a breach of the rules to be part of a human centipede if said centipede was formed prior to lockdown. Please forward any queries to my email. It's allsuegravybaby@aol.com. If someone has that email address, they're going to be really confused going forward." Joe Lycett tweeted that out along with a response to that, with messages he received. I work in Parliament for the Conservatives, and I think you need to know. Your tweet this morning was read as an actual serious leak from Sue Gray's report. You had MP staff literally running around panicking from what it said. Panic dialing MPs like we need to discuss this right now. I can't believe she used the phrase down it street. Absolute legendary work, well done. The fact anyone fell for that is fantastic. Although I really do wish, politicians did write like that, because that is exquisite work. And this trended to the point that a number of articles came out because of it. Some from the Daily Mail, others from The Sun. To be honest, Joe Lycett's response to this is fantastic, and I couldn't agree with him more. The Sue Gray report is a crock of crap right now. Not because of Sue Gray though, but because of those who conveniently stepped in to make sure things couldn't be seen, with the Prime Minister not even promising that we'll get to see the full report once the police have concluded their investigation, although it is likely they are going to issue fines to him, which will be a bit of a precedent, for a head of office to be fined and questioned under caution by the police while in office. Yes. Moving on, let's talk about Madonna. Ordinarily I don't do body shaming, just to be clear, but there is something clearly going on here, and many people have been debating whether or not this is some form of augmentation. We all do what we can to stave off the effects of aging, but no matter how hard anyone really tries, age really does show on you at some point. Usually in your later years, if you've lived well enough during your younger years. It is during that very youth you manage to hold off looking older, whether that be as some form of empowerment to yourself, or whether it be because you simply just don't want to grow up, which is not a criticism It's just how people act. Honestly, we all do it in some way. I mentioned Madonna because people are debating whether or not she's had surgery. The thing is, when you see what she used to look like, as opposed to what she looks like now, well, this is the picture that has gotten people talking, and yes, it only stays up for 1 second. People are wondering whether or not she's had surgery on her derriere. If you didn't see the picture, good for you. You're lucky on that one. The answer is pretty obvious though. Because of her age, early 60s, the complete lack of any development like this before, I think the vast majority of you would find it hard to believe that Madonna managed to do this at the gym through a dedicated regimen solely designed to plump up that ass. When, if you remove the L, it is more accurate. Madonna's been going through a bit of a phase as late, for about 50 years, where she likes to take the most provocative pictures that push the boundaries of what many people consider acceptable, going so far as to breach TOS on other platforms for things that I actually agree with her with, i.e. the whole nipple thing. Yeah, seriously, who cares? But at the same time, that's not what others noticed. What others noticed was, your face looks very different. I get you're rich, I really do, but changing on the outside does not change anything on the inside, and the inside is older. Not that the outside should in any way reflect the inside, of course not. If you can, by all means take advantage of it. But when you're reluctant to answer a very simple question of, did you use a bike pump? Or did you simply plug in the electric one you can put in a car lighter to get that ass up to that size? People will start to debate it. Now you can just fob them off as haters. By all means do so. I think it makes you look disproportionate, which in turn harms this idea of being empowering, because you're telling people that they don't have to be proud of who they are, because instead all they have to do is go and get augmented, which I don't think is remotely empowering in the slightest. And if anything tells people that if you're not happy with how you look, which is everyone anyway, by all means, cut a corner. It's the right thing to do. So next, the king of all the dwarves on this planet, Peter Dinklage, has managed to incur the ire of his kingdom. For those who don't know who Peter Dinklage is, he rose to fame because of Game of Thrones. As Tyrion Lannister, he was exceptionally popular and has managed to land a considerable number of roles because of his performance on that show. I personally believe he was overshadowed by a Starbucks mug and a water bottle. I also don't believe he's been coronated yet, so his reign as king is a tad confusing to me. After all, ours are coronated. Well, Peter Dinklage has managed to incur the ire of his subjects because of comments he made concerning the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs live-action movie being made by Disney. Those very same comments caused Disney to rethink the characters, which in turn means potentially 7 people are out of work. So what did Peter Dinklage say, and where did he say it? Appearing on the WTF podcast, Peter Dinklage said, "Take a step back and look at what you're doing there. It makes no sense to me. You're progressive in one way, and you're still making that effing backwards story about 7 dwarves living in a cave together. What the F are you doing, man?" He also said, "Have I done nothing to advance the cause for my soapbox? I guess I'm not loud enough." He did champion the fact that they've casted a Latina lead for Snow White, which is where some of his comments may not have made sense to you initially, but he chastised them for featuring dwarves for being minors in a cave. The more notable names within the dwarvish kingdom that have called out Peter Dinklage would include comedian Brad Williams, former wrestler Dylan Postl, who was Hornswoggle, Jeff Brooks and Katrina Kemp, who all believe it is wrong for Disney to cancel the roles of the 7 dwarves in the Snow White remake, with Dylan Postl saying, "It makes me so sick to my stomach to think that there are 7 roles for dwarfs that can't get normal acting roles or very few and far between roles. And now they are gone because of this guy. Peter Dinklage is the biggest dwarf actor probably of all time, but it doesn't make him King Dwarf. When he was cast as a little person role in Lord of the Rings, or in a Game of Thrones, or an elf, or this, that, or the other thing, those checks cashed just fine. He had no issue then, but now he wants to be progressive? Come on, man." The way I saw it initially was, he's taking out the ladder from underneath because he believes something to be degrading, and that is something many do agree with. There is an element to that. But as Brad Williams himself said, they're touting the progressiveness. They are touting that they have a Latina Snow White, which is great, but we're still doing the dwarf thing, you know. So he's right, but at the same time, I'm torn because it's like, yes, it's mildly offensive, but at the same time, I kind of need work, so I'm kind of hoping for acting gigs. You know, that's why I'm a stand-up comic, so I can get more work for myself and not have to worry about other people telling the story. And there is a point to that. Many people have to do things they don't like, or perhaps something they find offensive, mildly, but it opens a door to bigger and better roles, and you, Peter Dinklage, know this. I've seen these Serrano billboards on every bus in my town, on every bus stop, or smoker's den, you know, for the edgy teenagers. You have managed to score big roles. You can look shamefully on the past, if you want, but by criticizing something like that in the manner you chose, the Disney machine decided, well, we're just going to go in a different direction, and in doing so, deny people work. To go back to Dylan Postal though, because he finished off with some rather good comments. I don't know if Peter Dinklage is still acting, or if he is done now, but I don't know. It's pretty selfish. People came before him. If it is his mindset he wants to be the only one, then you gotta grow up, man. It's not helping our community, it's taking jobs away from our community that are very few and far between as it is. We are in a society and a time of woke and progression, and I get that, to an extent. But this is a fairy tale. This is a fairy tale about Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. Dwarves are one of the focuses, they are literally in the title. When I grew up, all I wanted to do was be a professional wrestler and work for WWE. When I was 19 years old, they were casting for a leprechaun, a person of my stature to be on air talent. I could never in a million years have gotten a job with WWE as one of their main superstars. I'm not 6 foot, I'm not 250 pounds. But this role as a leprechaun was made for me. For 10 years I got to live my absolute childhood dream as Hornswoggled the Leprechaun on WWE. If a dwarf just dreams of being an actor and in a Disney film, then this role is made for them. You're taking these roles of not just one, but 7 little people away because you feel like we have not made progression. It is so stupid, it's just dumb. You're doing worse for the community than better. He does go on for a lot longer. And there are some good comments from Jeff Brooks and from Katrina Kemp, linked in an article down below. As we don't have all the time in the world, we need to move on from the king of dwarves onto other subjects. While the subject we're now going to discuss is a tad on the dated side, it does get the traction it rightly deserves here and in mainstream still, because in reality no one has been made to pay for what they did wrong. So obligatory remark now. Defund the BBC. Why? Well, let's go with Sir Cliff Richard. Sir Cliff Richard is, in this country, a superstar. Untouchable. Well, he was. Courtesy of Operation Yewtree, in 2014, so in the wake of the Jimmy Savile scandal, police began investigating allegations against Sir Cliff Richard. So in the middle of the night, he'd be awoken in the darkness because police cars ranged outside his home, and inside, officers were rifling through all of his possessions. At the time, Cliff Richard was in Portugal, and he was terrified because he didn't know what they were looking for, and they were just doing it anyway. So how does this factor into the BBC? Well, around that time, the BBC decided to run with it, as if it was not only factual, but true. The BBC filmed the entire raid, which took years to get any level of conclusion. It took 5 years for the Crown Prosecution Service to rule out bringing any charges against Sir Cliff Richard. It took more than 3 years for him to win a landmark privacy action against the BBC. This all handily ties into the Metropolitan Police's botched investigation into something they called Operation Midland, which concerned allegations made by a man called Nick, a serial fantasist by the name of Carl Beach, to be more precise. He made allegations against politicians, all of which were fabricated, but a lot of which destroyed careers. I've always stood by the idea of, it doesn't matter who you are presumed innocent until proven guilty, and you deserve anonymity until all has been concluded. If you falsely accuse someone though, and you're proven to have done so, expect to be tarred and feathered the same way the person who may have committed a crime and is proven to have done so is treated. Perverting the course of justice, after all, is quite serious. I mention this now because Cliff Richard was in the news again because he's added his support to a group who have been similarly falsely accused of this same crimes that the police have colossally cocked up investigating, all of whom have now written to the Prime Minister asking that they, reform the Met. Based on what the Metropolitan Police did this week concerning the Sue Gray report, hard X to doubt. So again, just because I don't like them, defund the BBC. Now back to regular programming. So for the next story, we go to Donovan, aka Crip Daddy. Bring back bullying in schools. I know that would ordinarily be a This Week at Twitter thing, and I should surely now say, don't bully. However, he's retweeting the New York Post. School district denies litter boxes for students identifying as furries. On the screen now, you're seeing a video, because I can't be bothered to edit my avatar into this because I know the video is going to be long. It is during a Board of Education meeting from December 20th, 2021. The comments are turned off. The liked dislike is hidden. Dislikes already were, of course. But we've got to hide that pesky like button. Now, initially upon clicking the link with the New York Post, it took me to one of those crappy Instagram story styled things. Don't care for it at all. But I've gone to an article instead, where a Michigan school district has debunked a wild claim that a school provided litter boxes for students who identify as furries. So people who dress up as anthropomorphic animals. I still think they all need to be captured, herded into ISO cubes. This all originated from a Facebook post that details this rumor. So when concerned parent Lisa Hansen said that she was really disturbed after reportedly learning from a student that at least one of our schools in our town, in one of the unisex bathrooms, a litter box for the kids that identify as cats exists. Also saying that I'm all for creativity and imagination, but when someone lives in a fantasy world and expects other people to go along with it, I have a problem with that. Lisa Hansen identifies furries as people who identify as a cat, dog, or whatever, also claiming that the nefarious practice was part of a nationwide agenda being pushed within the education system. This then led to Michigan Republican Party co-chair Mayshawn Maddock writing, "Parent heroes will take back our schools." On the same day though, many people pointed out that this was in fact false, saying it is unconscionable that this afternoon I am sending this communication. However, our Midland PS stakeholders may be confused about a false message accusation that has resurfaced this week and is gaining traction in the social media realm. Adding, let me be clear in this communication, there have never been litter boxes within MPS schools. Those comments come from Michael E. Sharrow, who is the superintendent for Midland Public Schools near Detroit. And I think we can all agree here, the only way we're going to deal with the furries is in a full-blown war. Someone ready the battle hamsters. It's time for a war. So next we have an update. A good one though, concerning Totally Not Mark. Many of you may remember I covered Totally Not Mark within the EOSP series. Not for anything wrong that he did, but because of mass DMCA flagging from Toei. I don't care who you are actually, I don't even care how to pronounce your name. I'm going to read a Twitter thread from Nick Diorio because it is applicable to what's happened since. Whether you like Nick or not, I don't care. It looks like Totally Not Mark's videos are back. This is a huge deal. YouTube did however block all of his videos in Japan exclusively because they believed Toei's DMCA reasoning wasn't sufficient outside of that market. This is the first time I've seen anything like this. I'm no expert on Japanese copyright law, and I doubt John Swan is either. However, it is my understanding that there is no general fair use exception that exists in Japan, or an extremely limited one. They typically treat Mark as a pirate equivalent to re-uploading full movies. Because of this, there was no distinction made between fair use critiques, fair use reviews, or 100% original drawing videos that just showcased Dragon Ball characters. So Toei didn't cite sufficient reasoning in their claim, and therefore YouTube denied the strikes out of market. Fun fact really is, when you try and draw anything that you've drawn yourself, if it closely resembles something owned by one of the major Japanese artistic companies, they're gonna claim it. Has anyone tried to draw their own version of a Pokeball and get away with it? Because seriously, Nintendo are trigger happy on that. And while we're talking about Pokimane's in the news. In a recent stream, let's ignore the drama stuff concerning Pokimane because I couldn't care less about it, she's a hypocrite and you all know it. Pokimane discussed a problem with children on Twitch, and how they may be taken advantage of. Now, as any person on any platform knows, children get taken advantage of on those sites all the time. There are very little options available beyond encouraging parents to be more proactive in using the facilities available on those platforms to protect their children. And considering some of the things Pokimane has said in the past, It's a strange one to hear her say. So when Pokimane discussed her concerns regarding children on the platform in a recent stream, she noted how many of these hate raids that she'd been a victim of had been heavily populated by children who were regurgitating absolutely everything and don't know any better. So in an effort to combat this behavior, and to ensure that children have a safe space to view streams appropriate for them, Pokimane believes that now is the time for a children's version of Twitch, or at least a way to filter out unsafe streams. While that isn't the worst idea available, I'm not entirely sure how you could implement such a thing. By the way, you have children in your audience, so then by extension you are denying them the chance to watch you. I think we can all agree here that you are not safe for children based on things you have said in the past. So what would constitute safe for children? We have this with YouTube, where you have to mark up your video for monetization, and whether or not it is safe or intended for children. While I have a cartoon avatar and a cartoon backdrop, I am not safe for children. Also, if you try to implement rules or filters, you cannot guarantee that children's viewing is safe, because Twitch can only act after a crime has been committed, or a taboo or otherwise bad thing. So short of blocking children entirely, how does one do it? Do you just create twitch.tv for the grown-ups and then twitch.tv/only for children for kids? And who's allowed to stream on that platform? Would it just be Pokimane? I bet it would. I bet it would just be Pokimane. To the final subject, and boy, it's a doozy. So the actress Whoopi Goldberg was trending. Part of me has been wondering if, because of this particular trending, it may in any way impact on the rip-roaring successful Picard series. It is divisive, I'll admit. Not Whoopi Goldberg's appearance, the first season of it. Whoopi Goldberg was trending because she said some spicy things on The View which led to consequences, which did surprise me. Now I can't play the video of what she said, but instead I can in fact read them to you. During a conversation on Monday's broadcast of The View, in which the co-hosts of the show discussed a school board's banning of a non-fiction graphic novel about cartoonist Art Spiegelman's father's experience surviving the Holocaust, Whoopi Goldberg said, "Let's be truthful about it, because the Holocaust isn't about race. It's not about race, it's about man's inhumanity toward man." Now she was criticised by fellow co-hosts for those comments. The Anti-Defamation League and the US Holocaust Museum were first to criticise this, by saying the Holocaust was about the Nazi systemic annihilation of the Jewish people, who they deemed to be an inferior race. They dehumanized them and used their racist propaganda to justify slaughtering 6 million Jews. Holocaust distortion is dangerous. Later on the same day, Whoopi Goldberg apologized for her remarks on social media. She then, on Tuesday's episode of The View, offered an on-air apology, with Jonathan Greenblatt, the person who made those very comments earlier, who is the CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, present as a guest on the show, saying, "So yesterday on our show I misspoke. I said that the Holocaust wasn't about race, and it was instead about man's inhumanity to man. It is indeed about race because Hitler and the Nazis considered the Jews to be an inferior race. Now words matter and mine are no exception. I regret my comments as I said, and I stand corrected. I also stand with the Jewish people as they know, and as you all know, because I've always done that." I know some people pointed this out, but quite a few people on Twitter found it amusing for somebody who appropriated a Jewish name for her last name got done for being anti-Semitic, I guess? So what was the consequence for Whoopi Goldberg? ABC News PR put out the statement from President Kim Godwin of ABC News. "Effective immediately, I am suspending Whoopi Goldberg for 2 weeks for her wrong and hurtful comments. While Whoopi has apologized, I've asked her to take time to reflect and learn about the impact of her comments. The entire ABC News organization stands in solidarity with our Jewish colleagues, friends, family, and communities." There was a minor detail I left out of Whoopi Goldberg explaining herself, where she said, "As a black person, I think of race as being something that I can see," also having claimed that by saying the Nazis had to do the work because you couldn't tell who was Jewish. The argument of white passing. Those comments really didn't help you, Whoopi. They really didn't help you. A lot of those comments came from you explaining yourself on Stephen Colbert's show. Could you just not? Please? Star Trek's been sullied enough. This does not help. There was a rather eloquent way of phrasing it from David Baddiel, a British Jewish comedian. I'm going to link the article down below where he explains what he thinks about how these comments are dangerous. Do let me know what you think about everything we've covered today, because yes, we have reached the end. I know it's a long video. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, smash the like, leave an obligatory comment with just the word comment in if you want. I shall be streaming on Twitch tonight. If I don't see you there, have a fantastic day. Thank you all very much for listening. Ta-ta.